The Lynx KF41 is about to see combat for the first time in Ukraine. The Rheinmetall Lynx KF41 has been in Hungarian service since 2022. It's also been ordered by Italy, Romania, and Australia. It's been exhibited at trade shows, praised in procurement documents, and described in press releases with words like next generation and modular and scalable protection architecture, which is the defense industry's way of saying they're very proud of it. But it has never been in combat until now. Ukraine signed a contract in December 2025 for its first 5 Lynx KF41 infantry fighting vehicles financed by the German government. Danke schön, darling, danke schön. Well, I just lost all of my German subscribers. I still have the French though. So, right now, or very close to it, the most advanced infantry fighting vehicle in the European defense market is arriving in the country currently fighting the most intense land war since 1945. Not to a training exercise, not to a NATO rehearsal, to the actual war. Ukraine will be the first country to take the Lynx into combat, and the vehicle was configured specifically based on what Ukrainian crews told Rheinmetall after testing it in late 2024. That's the story. Let's get into it. Hey friends, Wes here, Army infantry veteran, Air Force veteran, post 9/11 veteran. We're gonna get them terrorist strategy. And today, let's start with the hardware, because the Lynx deserves a proper introduction rather than a spec sheet reading. The KF41 is Rheinmetall's heavy infantry fighting vehicle, weighing in around 44 tons. For context, that's significantly heavier than a Bradley, which runs about 33 tons in combat. And Americans are known for making chunky things. It's not a tank, but it's approaching tank adjacent in terms of what it can absorb. The frontal armor is rated to stop 30mm rounds, the sides can handle 14.5mm projectiles, the floor is designed for mine and IED protection. For a vehicle whose job it is to move infantry into and through contested ground, those numbers represent a serious investment in keeping people alive. The primary weapon is a 30mm Rheinmetall Mark 30-2 ABM automatic cannon mounted in the 2-man lance turret, paired with a coaxial 7.62 machine gun. The turret can also accommodate anti-tank missile launchers, and the lance system is designed with an open architecture that allows for future upgrades. Rheinmetall describes the platform as highly modular, meaning different customers can configure different weapons, sensor packages, protection packages, and mission systems on the same basic hull. Ukraine's variant has been configured specifically based on combat experience. Rheinmetall said this explicitly in the January announcement. The vehicles are tailored for Ukraine's armed forces, reflecting battlefield lessons learned since 2022. That means Ukrainian crews who tested the vehicle told Rheinmetall what works and what doesn't in their specific environment they're fighting in. And Rheinmetall built those changes into production configuration. We talk about Rheinmetall so much on my channel, they better start sending me a check or something in the mail. That feedback loop between combat experience and vehicle design is exactly what a lot of Western procurement processes are too slow to do. Ukraine got it built into the first delivery. The contract didn't come out of nowhere though. Rheinmetall CEO Armin Papiger publicly acknowledged before the December signing that a Lynx had already been handed to Ukraine for testing in late 2024. The testing confirmed the vehicle's protection and firepower, and the positive results drove the decision to proceed with the bigger order. That prototype was apparently built in Hungary, which has been the first NATO country to domestically produce the Lynx, with its factory in Zalaegerszeg. What is up with Hungarian language? Why is it not like any other European language? Delivering its factory in that location, delivering 172 vehicles to the Hungarian Defense Forces. So, the vehicle Ukraine tested was made by a NATO ally in a NATO standard plant and then sent to the world's most demanding IFV testing environment in active war. The Lynx passed. That matters more than any laboratory result or peacetime exercise ever could, because what Ukraine did to that vehicle during evaluation wasn't a scripted scenario. It was exposure to the actual tactical conditions and threat environment Rheinmetall's engineers can model but can't fully replicate at a test range in Bavaria. The vehicle that's arriving in Ukraine now is the result of that evaluation with the lessons already incorporated. And now, as an infantryman, the armored vehicle isn't an abstract capability, it's the thing you ride into a situation in, and the quality of that vehicle is a very personal concern when rounds start pinging off the hull. The noise inside, the heat, the way the whole platform responds when something impacts the hull, the question of whether the armor between you and the outside world is going to hold. The BMP, which I just covered recently in the Franken BMP video, was designed around a different calculation. Soviet doctrine wanted something light, amphibious, and cheap enough to field in enormous numbers. It got those things, but what it didn't get was the kind of protection that keeps a crew alive when modern anti-armor systems show up. The BMP-1's armor is, to be charitable, optimistic. The Lynx was designed around the opposite calculation. It's heavier, it costs more per unit, it's harder to replace when lost, but it can absorb hits that would destroy lighter vehicles, which means in theory you're not going to lose as many. That changes how commanders can use the infantry it carries. You can push it farther forward. You can keep it in the fight longer. You can use it to support dismounted infantry rather than simply delivering them to a point and buggering off, like a battlefield Uber. For Ukrainian crews who have been riding into combat in 1960s Soviet boxes, the psychological and the tactical difference is enormous. So 5 vehicles is a proof of concept. 200 is a force multiplier. By 2028, Ukraine is expected to receive up to 200 Lynx KF41 vehicles, making this type one of the core platforms of its mechanized forces. The 5 now arriving are the opening of a procurement pipeline, not the pipeline itself. Germany financed the first batch. Additional batches are planned through a combination of international funding and eventually domestic production. So let me be precise about what by 2028 means in practice. It means the first real Lynx-equipped Ukrainian units could be forming and training within the next 12 to 18 months, with meaningful numbers on the ground by mid-decade. That's not fast by peacetime standards, but in wartime terms, where Ukrainian armor is being attrited at a brutal pace by mines, FPV drones, Lancets, and anti-tank missiles, a pipeline of 200 modern IFVs arriving over 2 years is a genuine strategic input. The numbers also need to be understood against the backdrop of what else is arriving. The Lynx isn't arriving into a vacuum, it's arriving into an army that's also receiving Leopard 2 tanks, Marder IFVs, M2 Bradleys, CV90s, thank you Sweden, and dozens of other Western platforms. The Lynx becomes the standardization anchor, the platform Ukraine chose as its primary IFV going forward, around which future procurement, training, and doctrine can consolidate. Now, here's the part most of the coverage has missed. Rheinmetall currently has the deepest onshore industrial footprint of any non-Ukrainian defense company operating inside Ukraine. 4 factories are announced and at various stages: an armored vehicle assembly plant, an artillery ammunition plant, an air defense systems facility, and a dedicated gunpowder and propellants plant. A maintenance hub opened in June 2024 is already servicing Leopard tanks, Marder IFVs, Fuchs armored transports, and Skynex and Leopard air defense systems inside Ukraine. The armored vehicle assembly plant is where the Lynx story connects. As the Ukrainian fleet grows toward 200 vehicles, the economic and logistical argument for local production strengthens. You don't ship repaired hulls across Europe when you can fix them on site. You don't wait for German production slots when you can assemble vehicles in the country that needs them. Romania's April 2026 order of 298 Lynx vehicles for its own armed forces, valued at 2.6 billion euros, and the largest armored vehicle procurement in Romanian history, gives the Ukrainian industrial story its commercial logic. Rheinmetall now has 2 major Eastern European customers who want Lynx vehicles and who represent exactly the kind of long-term demand that justifies investing in regional production capacity. Ukraine benefits from that scale even before it builds a single Lynx itself. The Lynx factory in Ukraine is still a future milestone rather than a current reality, but it's a future milestone that has a business case now. So 5 vehicles is not 500. The first combat use of the Lynx in Ukraine will be watched closely and will matter for the broader procurement picture, because if the platform underperforms or proves vulnerable to specific threats, the 200 vehicle pipeline will face questions. The Lynx has never been in combat. Ukraine is its exam, and exams have outcomes that go either way, depending on how hard you study. The drone threat to any armored vehicle in Ukraine is real and non-negotiable. At 44 tons, the Lynx is not invisible to Lancet loitering munitions or to top attack munitions. Its superior armor does help it against a lot of threats. It doesn't make the vehicle immune, though. Ukrainian commanders will need to develop tactics for the Lynx in a drone-saturated environment that the vehicle's designers could model but not fully anticipate. Training is the other variable. Transitioning crews from BMPs and Marders to a fundamentally different platform requires time and a training pipeline that is itself a resource under pressure. The 200 by 2028 target assumes that pipeline exists and is producing qualified crews at pace. And the factory ambition remains ambition until it has a production schedule and supply chain and trained workers. But Rheinmetall's Ukrainian footprint is real. The Lynx assembly line is the next milestone, not the current reality. And here's what this is actually about. Ukraine has been fighting this war on borrowed equipment, Soviet inheritance, captured Russian hardware, donated Western systems with mixed support chains and varying compatibility, and they're starting to build their own weapon systems now. The Franken BMP video I made recently is essentially the visual metaphor for Ukraine's armored modernization story so far. Take what you have to, bolt on what you can get, and hope the combination is good enough for today. The Lynx represents a different approach. Ukraine didn't accept what was available. It ran a competition, tested candidates in actual combat conditions, selected the platform it wanted, negotiated a configuration based on its own battlefield experience, and is now building toward producing that platform domestically. That's not a country surviving on donated equipment. That's a country building a defense industrial base. The difference matters beyond this war. The country that emerges from this conflict with Western IFV production capability, a Rheinmetall maintenance ecosystem, artillery shell plants, and a trained technical workforce has a different security posture than the country that went into it. Ukraine is building that posture while the shooting is still happening. That has never been done before at this scale. The Lynx KF41 is going to see combat for the first time, not in a NATO exercise, not in a structured evaluation, but in the Donbas or wherever the front demands it, operated by crews who gave feedback that shaped the vehicle they're now driving. That is a remarkable loop. A Ukrainian soldier tests a German IFV, tells the engineers what doesn't work, and the engineers build the fix into the production vehicles that arrive 6 months later. The war is writing the requirements document in real time. By 2028, 200 of those vehicles are supposed to be the core of Ukraine's mechanized forces. The factory that could eventually build more of them is in the works. And the most advanced IFV in Europe is about to find out whether everything the engineers built into it holds up when it matters. Ukraine will have the answer before anyone else, because Ukraine always does. That's it for today, my friends. If you want to follow the Lynx story as the first combat reports start filtering through, hit subscribe. This is one I'll be tracking closely. Deeper reads are over on Substack. QR code is on the screen, or just wesodonald.com. And as always, glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.